Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of Keeping It Real, where we have real conversations with extraordinary people in multi-million-dollar homes. I'm your host, Erica Rawls, and today I had the pleasure of sitting down with two extraordinary, dynamic people. Today, we're exploring a topic that affects every household, education. With me at this table is none other than Dr. Jessie Rawls and Quencey Hickerson. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. You're so welcome. So I had to bring you back because the last episode we had with all four of you dynamic women, it was just amazing. And I promised I was going to bring you back, whether as a group or individually. So thank you for saying yes. I know you're in education. And you are very young in education.
Yeah.
Yes, you are 28 years old, y'all, and she's already making an impact, right? And I think a lot of us know Jessie, Dr. Rawls, who happens to be my husband. So if y'all see me blush about this episode, that's because I'd have to have a conversation with someone that I not only admire, but I also love. So here we go. You ready? Here we go. Okay, so we want to focus on old school versus new school when it comes to education, right? So just share a little bit about how you grew up in the education system and then also why you decided to get into education after you graduated college, okay? So, Jessie, we want to start with you.
Yeah, in terms of growing up in education, so I graduated from Susquehanna Township High School. I went to Susquehanna Township 2nd through 12th grade. Before that, we lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I went to Ann Arbor public schools, but I've been in public schools my whole life. When I was in high school, it was at that time that I knew I wanted to get into education because of my experience in high school, positive experience in high school. And then from there, I went to college, and I went to the School of Education right away because I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I just didn't know what subject that I wanted to be a teacher in. I just know I just wanted to be an educator, and actually was a college professor that pulled me aside. I was doing some math work, and they said I was really good at math, and good in the sense of I worked hard at it. And then from there, I decided to be a math teacher. And then, the rest in terms of I started teaching at Susquehanna and then got into education administration.
That's awesome. So we'll get into that question. What about you, Quencey? What led you to get into education?
So just to give a little background on my education, started off in private school, kindergarten through 3rd grade. I was in Holy Family, and then from 4th grade on, I was in public school. I'm a product of Harrisburg School District. I then went on to Howard University. I actually got my degree in marketing, so it's real funny.
Really?
Yes, I never planned to be a teacher. Like it was never on my radar. It was never on my agenda. But one thing I did do throughout high school and even college, like when I would come home for summers or Christmas breaks, I was always volunteering with the different camps that they had. So Chris Franklin has a basketball camp throughout the summer. Brian Majors, Lawrence Ham, people like that who are giving back to the community. So through that, I started to realize how our kids were and how much different they were than us growing up. It wasn't until it was right before COVID hit when I graduated. I graduated Howard in 2018. So right before COVID hit, I was working as a teacher's assistant at Premier Arts and Science Charter School.
Okay.
With a family relative. He hooked me up, got me in there. And when I got in there, that's when I realized okay, kids like me, they listen to me. I kind of have an influence, so why not get into teaching? And it was kind of like a doy moment because it's I should have been doing this. So I didn't start teaching until the school year was 2021, 22. No, 22, 23.
Okay.
First year I started teaching.
So you're new.
So I'm
excited to hear your perspective about this study.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got into it. Was never on the radar, but once I realized where our kids were at, I felt like I could help.
Yeah. So then share your experience going through high school versus, because you're at the high school level?
Yes.
Okay. So share your experience going through high school versus what you're seeing today.
So one thing I will say, I feel like a lot of things are watered down now.
For example,
inclusion is prioritized, which I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
But if it works, if inclusion doesn't work, we shouldn't be pushing for it. So going throughout high school, I would say I don't think it would, from a student perspective, I don't think it was prioritized because I was in the class with people who did the same things as me, people who looked like me, people who spoke the same language as me, people who had the same skill set as me. Growing up, even before I hit high school, I would notice that students are being pulled out of classrooms. We used to have the trailers sitting outside, like, and as a student, you know, you're minding your business. You don't know what that stuff's for.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got to this age when I realized, okay, those students were being pulled out because they needed a specific skill set onto them.
Oh, okay.
So now that whether that was language, whether that was reading, whether that was math skills, they were being pulled out into those trailers. Whether I was at the private school or the public school, they were being pulled out of my classroom to enhance those skills.
Right.
We even had an emphasis on the gifted program, which is for your students who are more advanced. I don't really see much of that anymore because it's like we're so focused on inclusion, which is okay.
Right.
But again, if it works. So now being on the high school level, it's inclusion, and being a teacher, it's like it gets overwhelming because while I'm trying to include everybody, it's almost impossible. So just
That's a great point.
Yeah, for example, like in my classroom right now, I'm teaching at Harrisburg High, my alma mater. It's a lot of diverse individuals. I have a translator app that I'm using all throughout class. I don't remember my teachers doing that in high school. So it's things like that where I feel like the difference has come, and it's great. I love it because we're helping these people who are new to this country get acclimated with something that's very prevalent, which is education. So I'm all for it, but it's just like the support. I need some type of support because I'm still only one person.
Right. Do you want to speak to that?
I mean, I think it's always important we ask teachers to do a lot. I don't think people really understand how much teachers really do inside the classroom. I mean, Quencey's pointing out a good point in terms of, like, you know, you could be a teacher in a class and you have students speaking different languages. You have students at different levels. The question becomes, how much support are we giving our educators? I think that's it's really important that educational administrators really work to support their teachers. I think that's why I got into education administration, because I saw that need as a first year teacher. I got a lot of support. I moved to a new district, didn't get a lot of support. And I saw that had I not gotten the support I needed when I first started teaching, it would have been impossible for me to continue to be a teacher. So now one of my main goals always as a principal, as an educational leader, is to make sure that teachers have the support they need so they can be successful in the classrooms. Because if they can be successful in the classroom, then the students can be successful. And sometimes, you know, as leaders, you know, we forget what it's like to be in the classroom. And that's something I try never to forget, to really realize what they're up against, and then how can we support them to get their job done. So
yeah. So have the shifts in education, like over the years, has it changed your approach to leadership? Because it sounds like what you just said.
I mean, yeah, in a sense. I mean, when I left for college and then came back, nothing really had changed. You know, there wasn't cell phones, there wasn't social media. I know teachers were working hard and things of that nature, but it was still a traditional type model. I mean, and now there's a huge shift. You know, we went through the phase of no technology to technology, and now we're pulling it back and saying, you know, these cell phone things have gotten out of hand. Again, just the diversity that's taking place across the country and in our area. So we do have a lot of students speaking different languages and things of that nature.
Right.
We have more students with IEPs than we had when I was growing up. And again, all those things put pressure.
Is that not in education? What is IEP?
So a student with an individual education plan. So learn support students and things of that nature. If you talk about English language learners, so those are students that speak a different language. So you didn't have a lot of that when I was growing up or when you were growing up, but that's what we have now, and it's a good thing. But again, you need support to make sure that you, as a teacher, as a school system, can ensure that teachers are being supported and that the students are being supported too. Because there's been a lot of different lawsuits along the way that have led to these things in terms of how, where students are at inside of classrooms. And so that's where we're at. So education has drastically shifted from, the mid-90s to where we're at now.
Just in technology, like Quencey, could you speak to like the different types of technology that's available today that you didn't see when you were going through the education system?
So I would say growing up, I didn't really hit that technology phase until we got to high school. I went to sci-tech. So sci-tech was known, and it was a misconception at the end of the day that we were more advanced or we got the better resources than the John Harris campus, which wasn't always the case.
Right.
But I was introduced to incorporating technology once I got to that high school level. Now, growing up, like I remember in kindergarten typing on typewriters. Like we didn't have computers.
I loved my typewriter.
Yeah, and I'm like, I feel hype like saying that because it's like, I know how to work a typewriter.
Right.
So like I remember that in kindergarten, these new calculators that they have, I straight up told my class this week, I'm about to hit up my resources to figure out how we can get some more basic calculators because Miss Q doesn't know how to work these ones. It's literally like a phone, but it's a calculator. You can text on it, you can type. All I want to know is 2 + 2.
Right.
So it's like things are more.
You know what she's referring to?
Well, yeah, and I can, again, when I was in college, I took calculus. We didn't use calculators.
Right.
We used to use the basic ones.
Right.
But now when you take a calculus course, you're going to be using a serious calculator, like, Texas Instrument TI.
Like have to get training on
how to use it. So there has been a shift. And
so how does that help the student if the teachers or the administrators don't even know how to use those tools, right?
Well, it goes back to, so she needs training on it, right? So you got to get, if you hand somebody something, you got to make sure that they're trained on. Now the students, they figure this stuff out pretty.
So they're engaged with the technology. They
don't know any other way.
Okay.
So our students now, 2024, to them, when you say technology, it's just a way of life. Like they don't know what it's like to, right? Like a cell phone to them that's normal.
It's a necessity.
But here's the thing. So do you think some of the traditional methods have been lost that should come back?
Yes.
Like, what are you thinking? Like,
so I'm gonna take it back. And this might be a little problematic, but I was just talking to my grandpop about it, and I'm like, they kind of need to bring the paddles back. Like this is where we're at with it. And I'm like, I would have loved to be a teacher with a paddle. But I'm exaggerating, of course, but it's like we're
a little bit.
But I just feel like we're getting to a point where things are getting out of control. Teachers, educators, period, are losing their power because we're going back and forth with a student who feels some type of entitlement to a system that they don't know how it works, basically. And then not only are we battling that student, we're battling that student's parent. So it's like 2 against us.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's kind of like when you're working at a fast food restaurant, the customer is always right. You want to always cater to the customer. So when it comes to the students, and I feel like that's where your special education and the enhancements and ELL departments come about, because we want to cater to that student because we want to make sure they have everything that they need to academically succeed. Now, where I think we kind of dropped the ball is everything just gets mushed into one, and we can't decipher anymore what each student really actually needs. So it's kind of up in the air with everything.
How do you balance that?
Well, so I think one important point that Quencey was speaking about is when you're working with students now versus back when we were growing up, it's this level of respect.
Mm-hmm.
So working through that whole piece is very different than when I first started teaching to what I see today. So there's this, I think students, again, when you talk about technology, you talk about entertainment, you talk about what they're seeing and, on a daily basis and what their expectations are when they're having a conversation with you. Sometimes if you don't set the tone and remind them that there is a sense of respect that has to take place between me as an adult and you as a student, or you as a young person, that can get lost, because if you make the assumption that they know that, then I think you're off base. And I go back to that. So that's a good teaching strategy. I always tell, and as an education administrator, I always tell people, like, up front, you got to let students know what the expectations are every year, sometimes every day, until they really understand it, right? You can't assume anything, because they might not know, and they don't know.
Right.
And then there's this sense of, working with parents. And I always tell high school parents, now is the time to be really involved in their life, in terms of what they're watching, what they're doing, what they're seeing.
In high school.
Right. But then also they need to be supportive of us as educators, and to let their children advocate for themselves, so that they don't always just come and run to their rescue to rescue them out of difficult situations.
How do you balance that? Because we have a lot of, and I'm way down, because we're going to talk about the sense of helicopter parents and how you deal with those. But how do you balance that? Like, what are some strategies?
How do you balance
the fact that allowing the students to advocate for themselves versus when that parent should actually step in?
Oh, so I always try to, like, if a parent were to call me or email me about a situation in the classroom, the first thing I always ask is, did the student talk to the teacher, right? Or if it's something with sports, did your student talk to the coach? Like, if you're contacting me and the student hasn't even spoken to the teacher, spoken to the coach, then you're not, the lesson you're teaching them isn't the proper lesson, because they need to talk to the teacher, talk to the coach, talk to the adult first, try to resolve it, right? Then if they're not satisfied with the outcome, then they could tell their parents, and the parents can talk to us, and we'll try to resolve it. But the first step we always want to teach high school students, and even, in middle school, is you have to work to resolve things, because, the sense of failure now in our society is like, it's the end. It's the end of the world. But it's really just the beginning, right? It's just you failed, you didn't do well on the test, you didn't do well in the game, you didn't do well, in the rehearsal for the musical or whatever. You failed, but that's just, the beginning of your next step. And we have to continue to push students and talk to them about these things. So I think it's, it's important for us as educators, us as parents, us as adults, to continue to talk to our young people about that. I think that's
important you're talking about. So, and Quencey, from your perspective, you're like shaking your head like, yeah, I would love to see that, right? Because then that you have the support of the administration when you do have to make the decisions, hard decisions. And you have someone has your back. Yes, has your back. So, anything you want to add to that?
I was just going to say, to piggyback off of that, I talk to very few parents, and the reason for that is because I like to handle everything in-house. I like to take that approach and sit down with the student and figure out how we can come to a resolution. Because at the end of the day, and this is why I chose high school, because I feel like they're the perfect group that you could speak life into, because you're 4 years, regardless of where you're at in high school, you're 4 or less years away from the real world. So if I can get that group of kids and speak life into them and prepare them for what's to come next, this is what I'm going to do. So we're going to sit down and resolve this, because when you go to this college that you say you want to go to, when your financial aid doesn't come through, you're going to have to go to the financial aid office and figure that out, not mom. Now, let's say, because I did have to call my mom for the financial aid office a few times in college, but for the most part, I was the one missing class to go sit in that office for 6 hours a day. Right. So y'all are going to have to get prepared for that. And that's why I try to leave the parents out of it unless it gets to that point. But it's never really gotten to that point. I feel like that's kind of my gift. I can kind of talk them down and make them realize. And then once they hear, oh, you went through that too? Oh, okay. It kind of reels them in.
Yeah. So then what's the dynamic? Because I know that you went to what we refer to as an urban school versus a suburban school, right? And same with you, urban and suburban. This is a great dynamic, y'all. It just hit me. Yeah. So when it comes to discipline or the parent support, do you see any drastic differences between the two? Can you contrast between the two school systems and the parents' involvement between the two? And I don't care who actually starts.
I think, so here's what I believe, and I've always said this: all parents care about their kids. It's just how much time do you have to, go to games, go to back to school nights, and all those different things. So sometimes we get confused about parent involvement because the parents might be working and things of that nature. So then we have to, make sure that we're setting up a system that they can be more involved. But so yeah, I've worked in urban schools. Parents have been involved. I worked in suburban schools. They're more involved, right? But some of it's just timing, right? They might have a little bit more time. Also, I think and this has been proven out in fact. So if you're a college educated, right, you kind of understand the process of what you need to do to go from high school to college to career and so on and so forth. So a big thing, like when I work in a suburban school, it's more of, okay, there's an expectation that you're going to graduate from high school. Right? I never thought you weren't going to graduate from high school. Whereas maybe in a more urban school, it's like, I wasn't sure. And so graduation so graduation becomes the height. Yeah, where we need to always push children to think after graduation, because it's not just about graduating from high school. Like that should just be what we do, right? And then think about what's life like after high school. We had to keep pushing our students to think that way, and for our parents to think that way, and not to think that the graduation is the end all be all, because it's really not. It's a good jumping off point, but then we have to continue to move after that.
And you're seeing that more in the urban population than you are in the suburban population. Like they're
because some of them are their first time for their family to graduate from high school. So it is a big deal, and I love that. And I'll be at graduations at East High. I would love seeing students that they were the first in their family to graduate from high school. I mean, it's nothing like that feeling. But I would always try to get them to think about what are we doing after we graduate from high school.
Yeah.
What I'm saying.
What's your experience?
I would say the same thing. So I really don't have that much experience with a suburban school, because I taught at both public urban high schools. I would say where I'm at now, it's less of a standard and more of an accomplishment, more than where I was prior. And I feel like with that, it has to do with resources, where you live, where you come from, job opportunities, how your parents came up. So in that inner city, which would be Harrisburg City, I'm seeing more of kids with less resources. But what I will say is the kids with the less resources, I feel like are easier to reach and reel them in.
So,
because I don't want to sound bad, I don't want to give it a negative connotation, but they're not used to anything. So when I show you what you can do, when you accomplish something as getting your first A in this course, they say, oh my gosh, like I can really do this. So let me keep doing this because I like how this makes me feel. Where the prior school I was at, what having stuff feels like, because of it's not inner city. It's still the city, but it's not inner city. It's, nicer homes out east. It's more opportunity, better resources, more money. So it's like, it's not a sense of entitlement, but it's a sense of knowing. Our kids in the inner city, they have no sense of knowing because they're battling other things that our kids in the suburban areas don't have to battle. So it's like, I feel like my kids now are easier to reach because I don't have to fight as many battles, because it's like, hey, you're going through that. I've been through that too. I got through it because I lived on the same street that you did. So let's get through it together. And they're like, oh, whereas where I was at prior at East, it's like, oh, you're not from where we from, or some kids are walking in with more than what I got. Right. So it's like, I don't know how to meet them where they're at. I'm still going to be supportive. I'm still going to do everything that I need to do for you. I feel like I had a very successful, 2 years while I was there. But just being at home, it kind of hits harder because the same store that you go to after school, I was going to after school. The same candy man on your corner was the same candy man on my corner.
So you can relate to them, able to give them real life.
Yeah. And it's like once they see that, they take heed. They see what it does for them, and it's more motivating. Like I had a girl just this week. She's like, I really only came to school for your class, and that really made my heart happy. I mean, it's sad at the end of the day because you're only coming to school for me, but for me to be able to do that for her, that meant a lot to me.
Well, is it scary, or is it something that you should be inspired by because you're speaking life to her that otherwise she would not have?
She wouldn't have. It's kind of both, because I don't want to be your only reason. Like, I want you to figure out what your reason is, what your purpose, and
I got you.
what your intentional purpose is, and coming to school and getting your diploma, whether that's you want to go to a trade school, whether that's you want to go off to college, whether that's you want to start your own business. I want you to know why you're coming. Don't just come for me. I love that I did that for you, but let's figure out what our true purpose here is.
But that's so important though too, because I think like students, when they have one reason to come, then they'll have another, then another, then another. But education, and we get down to the heart of it, is about relationships too. So us as adults building relationships with young people, then get them to see a future, beyond what they currently see. And sometimes, again, if your parents are that way with you, then you have that at home. If they're not, you're seeking it, right? And so, as educators, always feels good when the child's seeking and you're able to meet that need and build that relationship with them and help them move on to the next level. I mean, ultimately, that, like I said, I wanted to be an educator. I didn't know what subject, but ultimately I wanted to be an educator because I wanted to build relationships with young people to get them to see a life for themselves beyond what maybe they had seen before.
Yeah. And I think that's huge, because once you build a relationship with the students, right, then when it comes time to discipline them,
Easier.
It's easier because they know that you have good intentions. I think what I see, they trust you, or I see the disconnect in the teacher-student relationships where they struggle are the ones that are just there to teach, right, and not to pour into them. The students feel it, right?
So with that, and being devil's advocate for the teachers who are there just to teach, school systems put so much pressure on you to just teach. So it's like we're more worried about these state scores because that's what's giving our funding, more than we worried about what little Jimmy's going home to, whether he got a meal at home.
Wow.
So that's where I feel like that disconnect really comes in, because it's not what we want to do, but you have teachers who are, and I'm serious about my job, but I'm more serious about reaching the youth. Now, I care about their academic achievement, but I know that if something is lingering over them that's going to affect that academic achievement, let's fix that first. So then we can work on the academics. Let's maybe go to the social worker and figure out how we can get this kid some shelter so they're not sleeping in uncle's car. And then we can focus on what 2 + 2 is. Because without that, we can't focus on that.
So go ahead.
I was going to say that's so important because a lot of times people that aren't in education, they hear politicians talk about education and they talk about it in terms of test scores. And they say this school is not doing well because of test scores and things of that nature. And it makes it easier for the politicians to talk that way, but they don't really know what's going on. And so when you're in a system, like an educational system, maybe where the focus is just on test scores, because that's what, these different politicians are hammering, saying, hey, we're giving all this money to these schools and look at their test scores. And they're missing the mark. And I think they're messing education up. And it wasn't like that when we were going to school. So when I was going to school, when I was in high school, they had just started. Casey came out with Governor Casey came out with some kind of test. But it had just started. We took a state test or the California Achievement Test, but it wasn't a big deal. We were able to, I think we were able to go to school and teachers were able to teach and build relationships with us. And there was never this sense of, you guys got to do well on the Keystone State Test, or you have to do well on the PS.
I remember that either.
Right. But people will be surprised, again, depending what school district you're in, where the focus is at. And so, it's really important, I think, for the public to understand that when they hear, politicians just talking about test scores, they're doing education a disservice because they're missing the mark on what we really should be measuring, which again is what are our students doing after they graduate from high school? What kind of relationships are they building with teachers? What are their experiences in school? Are they positive? Are they having positive experiences in school? Do they have the resources that they need to be successful, and stop making it all about, state test scores and trying to tie that to funding for schools, and it's just, it's something that I get a little, I'm
I felt the passion. I felt that. I did. So then, okay, so speaking of that, do you think that when you went to college, so you knew you were going to be in education, right? So I'll ask this question for you. You went to marketing and then you decided you wanted to be an educator. Mm-hmm. So when you went to school, do you think that they properly prepared you for teaching them to test scores or to build a relationship?
I mean, to be honest, when I went to school, they didn't properly prepare me for what I was walking into. Okay. Because I don't think they really, they show you, here's how you should build a lesson and go do your student teaching. Mm-hmm. But when you get the key and you walk in the room on your first day, it's
nothing like that.
Yeah, you got the students sitting in front of you looking at you like, okay, what you going to do?
And I think that's why Quencey does so well, because you're good at building those relationships and you're willing to go the extra mile, right? You're willing to go to their house if they need the house or take them to meet with a social worker where, I don't know, what are your feelings about those that, you see people teaching and they don't have that same, I guess, passion or drive to build relationships with children? Like, how do you deal with that? Because there's a lot of teachers that probably should change their careers.
Yeah.
Saying nicely.
I just mind my business when it comes to that. But no, I feel like where I'm at now, we all have a common goal, and that is to make sure our students are successful. So although they might not be focused on their life beyond the classroom, I still know that they're there and care about that kid and still want them to succeed. Now, whether they're drilling them with math drills and getting them to memorize equations, that might be different. Like, that's a different level of care that they're showing. So I don't judge or anything. Really don't voice my opinion about it because I really don't know people's true intention. I just know what mine is. And I feel like if I go into school and do what I'm set to do, maybe I might get this teacher next door who didn't feel that way at the beginning of the year to cross over. Like, hey, I see how the students are gravitating to you. I just had a teacher across the hall from me. He's been there for years. He's like, oh, you already seem like you know what you're doing. And it's like, it's not that I know what I'm doing. I prioritize that relationship because just like you said, when it comes to building that relationship, when I go to discipline, hey, stop running that hole. Oh, my bad, Miss Q. Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's all it takes.
Right. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about safety in schools. That has been like a thing lately, right? It's actually a hot topic. I literally have it hot topic. School safety. So what changes have you seen in how schools handle safety discipline and how does it impact your classroom, Quencey, from the time that you were in school to now what you're dealing with as a teacher, from a student to a teacher?
So I could say growing up, because there were school shootings as I was growing up, so that was becoming a big thing. Yeah, like the Sandy Hook was there.
Yeah, that's right.
Like I remember learning about Columbine. I know that was the big main one, but I feel like since Columbine, all the school shootings that have happened was while I was in school.
So it just started for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can't really say it's much of a change. Like I'm used to seeing the metal detectors at the front of the school. What I'm not used to is the cops and the parole officers in the hallways. Like that wasn't, and then I went to SciTech, so it was a lot smaller. But with me going to SciTech, I was still a part of John Harris. I did a lot of sports, so I was always in the building, even during the day. But yeah, it wasn't as prevalent as you see it now. Like when I was working at East, it kind of took me for surprise that probation officers had their own offices within the office. I'm like, where did that come from? Yeah, like it's not, they don't just pop in. They work there, they're stationed there.
Right.
So it's like, and then I'm seeing, and again, I went to SciTech, so I know this was a thing at John Harris. Kids with ankle monitors, like there's a lot of kids falling victim to the system earlier than what they were when I was in high school. Like we had our fair share, but it's more prevalent now, and I don't know, I feel like it's a need because we do need to make sure our schools are safe with everything that's going on around the world, all the technology that they have access to, all of the weapons and other illegal things that they have access to. We have to heighten that safety. So I'm thankful that it's there. It was just kind of walking into it. I'm like, well, where all this come from?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, it makes sense.
But you hit on something though, because you said technology, right? They have their cell phones. Mm-hmm. Those are literally like, I see them as weapons now because they are always on their phone.
They're the instigators.
Yes.
Yep.
They start Like, you don't even know when, to the point where they're coming into school and they're ready to start fighting. You're trying to figure out what happened. So, and I know you probably can speak to that.
Yeah, there's two things. So one, in terms of like students being in altercations or getting into arguments and leading into fights, the cell phone thing is out of control. Because when we were young, when I was growing up, so if I had a disagreement with someone on Friday that wasn't my friend, I left, I went home, we didn't talk.
You cooled down.
Yeah, I had Saturday, I had Sunday. I forgot about it. I watched an episode of 60 Minutes. I done forgot about what we were arguing about, right?
No, I watched 60 Minutes too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So I forgot about what happened, and Monday rolls around, and hey, I see you in the hallway. It's okay. Now they can't get away from it.
Nope.
If it started on Friday, it's going to amplify on Saturday and keep going on Sunday. So now Monday, just as a human being, you're ready to go.
Let's go.
Right. And then they add people into the arguments, and then they arguing. So I always say to them, why don't you just they say, well, I can't. I want to see what they're saying about me.
I want to see what they're saying.
And so it's very difficult for our young people to get away from disagreements. And again, it goes back to, okay, as a parent, if your child is going through a disagreement, then you need to check it, because they're probably on their phone doing things you have no idea about and saying things and acting a certain way, And so we've taken a step at our school. And I know schools are doing this across the country, where you're just saying, look, no cell phones, or no cell phones while the students are in class, because it's just constant distractions. So,
and I'm sure they probably even appreciate that. Like, honestly, being on your phone 24/7, that's a lot. That's draining.
Right.
Yeah.
And the way and again, that social media piece and the likes and all that, I think is so big for them. I can't understand it and appreciate it because I didn't grow up with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what that's like. So when I'm saying do X, Y, and Z, maybe, they're having trouble with it.
Look, Quencey can shed some light on it. Growing up in the social media world. Because I was...
Yeah, so the likes and everything, I think with them it's a little bit different. So don't get me wrong, growing up, whenever you got a like or a reshare or a repost, it's like a form of validation. All right, so you like...
So sad.
Yeah, it's sad. Like, you like my picture, oh, I'm it.
Mm-hmm. So that's a real thing when people would put a post up, and if they didn't get a certain amount of likes within a certain time,
They delete it.
They delete it?
Yeah, I'm not that type of person, but people definitely do that. Yeah. So yeah, it's like they're driven by likes and reshares, which becomes problematic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the fights, they filming them and then posting those.
Yep.
It's just.
But then it's also, like I said, it's a little bit different because we're seeing people getting paid from likes. Mm-hmm. So you got your and I can't really keep up with them because I don't think what they do is interesting. These influencers, the Kai Cenats and the Shades, they got. I really don't, because I don't know where they get houses like this from, but they're in these type houses. It's just like if I was to make a video and make it seem like this is my house, they do that, and they could be in California. Our students in Pennsylvania, they don't know that that's their uncle's donor's house.
Right.
They just see, oh, that's a nice big house. I'm gonna like this. The more I like this, I'm getting him paid. So that's getting him money. So maybe if I do what he's doing, I'll be successful like him and get to be in a big house. It's all, and then it's like a shift in society, because I feel like with the technology, we're more focused on material things now.
Yeah.
Like we look at people from the outside now, the cars, the clothes, the shoes, the jewelry, instead of taking our time to get to know people. I feel like we dropped the ball as a society with that, but it affects education because they're kids at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So whatever they think is in society, they're going to chase after it. And it makes it hard for us because it's like education. You still need that.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the J's and the jewelry. And you're not getting that without education. Yeah. But they can't grasp the concept because Kai Cenat, for example, I don't think he went to college, but they're looking at that. Oh, he didn't go to college. I could do what he do.
Right.
But it's like, that's not your reality, babe. You don't know how Kai Cenat came up, what his parents do.
Right.
Funding this for him. Like, you might not have those same circumstances. So what I will tell you, you can be Kai Cenat if you get your education. So
Fair. At least graduate.
yeah, at least graduate for me. Like, let's not just throw school away. I don't know. It's and then the social media, they get to see different people's perspectives. You have people posting about whether college or not is important. You have people debating on YouTube whether college or not is important. So they get access to that without being able to build their own opinion towards it.
Right. Yeah. So how do we create a safe space for our students, though, when it comes to safety? Like, how do we do that environment? Because we have social media, which is triggering, right?
Yeah.
And then you have people that just wake up angry.
Yeah.
Right. And they just decide they just want to end people's lives. Like, how do you balance that?
Well, so I think I'm going to go back to the last statement when we talking about people waking up and wanting to end people's lives. So when we were in school, right, we didn't have a mass shooting at a school.
No.
So now there's a lot more drills at schools, a lot more attention to a safety for the school. So you see school resource officers or police officers that work for the school district. So you see metal detectors, you see all those different things taking place. It's sad, but it's something that we have to do because some people do wake up and they want to just go on a mass shooting spree. So again, a lot of things that are happening in society just end up on our steps.
Yeah.
And so like the access to weapons for young people is it's easy for them to get them. And again, then they end up at school sometimes. So, I think we had to do something as a country around access to guns and things of that nature for young people or people that are going through some things and what it could end up leading to. So it's bigger than just what we do at schools, because I think schools do a really good job of preparing for these situations. We have all kinds of drills. I didn't have a lockdown drill when I was in high school, but we have lockdown drills now. I didn't have an outside intruder drill, but we have them now, or inside intruder drill, and what students are supposed
fire
to do.
drill, and that was it.
Yeah, and that was it. Yeah, now it's run, hide, fight.
Right.
Run if you can. If a shooter comes into school, run if you can. If not, hide, and at the last resort, fight. That's what we tell our kids in school. And that's because of what's happening in society.
And I think people underestimate how much time kids spend at school. So it's like the things that they're doing outside of school is eventually going to make it in school, because you're still here 5 days out of the week, 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's a job.
That is.
And sometimes you feel like you're at work more than you are at home. So that's how the kids feel with school. So I feel like if we, like you said, like just on a country level, like figure something out so we can change society, so that can spark the change in the education system.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. I want to end it with this. What is the one thing, right? Because we want to give people hope, that you admire most about this generation when it comes to the way that they approach education?
I think they're really creative, and I think we underestimate how much they want to contribute to society. And they have, such great ideas, and a lot of them have a lot of hope, So I think, our young people are really resilient. They're go-getters. They're creative. They are world changers. We just have to make sure they're getting the right resources, the right support, and we're concentrating on the right things with them.
Absolutely.
I think that's critical, and that we continue to talk about education and how important it is to their end goal, whether it's college, career, technical school.
Yeah.
We just gotta keep pushing.
How about you, Miss Q?
Basically the same thing. I like how headstrong they are.
Yeah.
Bold and driven. Like, I know if I say I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. I don't care who's standing. I don't care what principal, what teacher standing in my way. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I see that attitude within them a lot. Might not always be appropriate in the school setting, but beyond school, in life, you're going to need that quality to kind of persevere and get through whatever.
No, Quencey. So you said it's not, what is it? They shouldn't be doing it in the school. So how do you gear them? Because this is huge.
Sometimes.
How do you gear them so they don't lose that bite that may not be appropriate for the certain form that they're in, right? But then allow them to know that, okay, it's not appropriate here, but I do like it.
It's teaching them decorum. I'm a big person I'm an open book. I tell everybody that I'm going to tell you a story to get this through to you. So, because I haven't been through the worst, but I've been through a lot of experience that have shaped me into who I am today. So I feel like if I could share that story with that student, I'm going to share it with you so you know, hey, this ain't the time for that, but might need to use that somewhere else. So hold on to that, but just know there's a time and a place for everything. Cursing, for example. I mean, it's not, you don't need to.
I did see your post.
Yeah, like you don't need to do that. And I tell my students all the time, I wasn't a saint in high school.
Right.
I did what you're doing right now. Wasn't as loud.
Right.
But I still did that. It was a time and a place for everything. Around 1 million adults is not the time or the place to tell your friend how you don't like her effing dress or how whatever you're saying to her.
Yeah.
It's not the time for that.
Again, social media, I'm telling you.
Yeah, we have to bring decorum back to the country. We got to bring decorum back.
Yeah.
Bring it back. Bring it back. Okay, leaders, future leaders. Now, you're a leader in your own right. I'm like, what's say future leader? Yeah, like, always like you. I do. I truly enjoy it. Always having you here. And then Dr. Rawls, I made it.
Yeah,
you did. I didn't break a sweat. I did not. So I appreciate you both. I really do. Are there any last words that you want to share?
Get your education, kids. It's very important. Very important. It opens a lot of doors to the things that y'all want. So go get those good grades. Make sure your work's turned in. Don't just think school is an option.
Yeah.
Because it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? When you're struggling, find a mentor.
Yes.
In the building.
Because we're there. Care about you.
Find a mentor in the building. I think that's huge, right? And then hopefully everyone would be so lucky to have Dr. Rawls as their principal or, whatever your future brings to you. Yeah. Leading a school. Yeah. Because I think he's a dynamic leader, and I don't think it's because of my husband, because I just see the work he puts in.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you know what, y'all? I want y'all to keep keeping it real. But before we end this podcast, I do need to thank Musser Homes for allowing us to set up in this beautiful space here. And I do want to thank our sponsors, Allstate Insurance and Fidelis Mortgage, as well as Toch Construction. Between them and my real estate business, we're able to fund these amazing episodes. And if you know anyone that's looking to buy or sell and want to plug it in there, just reach out to us because we're here. Until next time, see ya.